Well, Prime Minister Saara Kuugongelwa-Amadhila is attending the annual Anti-Corruption and Integrity Forum organized by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or OECD, in Paris, France. The 2024 OECD Global Anti-Corruption and Integrity Forum gathered leaders from around the world to share new thinking and insights, as well as explore how anti-corruption policies and integrity frameworks can enhance responses to global corruption challenges. To elaborate on her participation at the forum, Prime Minister is now joining us via Zoom. A very good evening to you, Honorable Prime Minister, and thank you for coming onto our show tonight.
Good evening to you, and thank you for having me.
Now, to start, Prime Minister, what is the role of the OECD in fighting corruption, and what is the significance of Namibia being represented on such a forum?
Yes, the role of the OECD is to mobilize like-minded countries within the global north, practically, to strengthen efforts to combat corruption as a threat to economic growth and to development in the respective member countries. And the organization has been luring partners beyond their community of membership to join them in order that they would also align their own frameworks for fighting corruption and benchmark with them in order that we can ensure that we are putting in similar efforts and we are coordinating our efforts globally to fight corruption in order that there are no loopholes that would allow practitioners of corruption to find loopholes that they can utilize to advance their agendas to the detriment of our countries individually and as a global community.
Now, Prime Minister, you have participated in various topics of discussion. I mean, amongst them is public integrity topics that should be adequately managed to strengthen democracies. Now, it would be very interesting for us to know what are these public integrity indicators and how are they used to curb corruption?
Yes, these public integrity indicators indicators such as the adequacy of the legal framework, the capacity of the institutions that are involved in fighting corruption, the capacity of the persons that are entrusted with the responsibility to administer the systems for fighting corruption, the existence and adequacy of the coordination framework that bring together various stakeholders within countries and across the borders to ensure that the fight against corruption is carried out by all relevant stakeholders in order to optimize the outcome. And Namibia, as you know, have prioritized the fight against corruption. We have established an anti-corruption commission through an act of parliament that establishes it as an autonomous agency that is accountable only to the parliament and not to the executive. We have also established other institutions such as the Financial Intelligence Center that specifically focuses on intelligence on illicit financial flows to enable the country to deal with improper conduct in that regard, and also to put in place preventative measures. And you have other institutions such as the regulatory institutions such as the Central Bank, NAMFISA, that would ensure that the financial institutions are appropriately regulated and monitored in their conduct in order that they do not become a conduit through which financial crimes are to be committed. And then we have also passed other laws, such as the one that would enable us to fight money laundering and the financing of terrorism. We have recently also commercialized our tax authority reforming it from a department in the Ministry of Finance to an autonomous agency in order to attract skills and also to ensure that they are properly resourced otherwise to enable them to carry out the work that they need to do. So these indicators will enable us to assess our capabilities in all those areas and other related areas for capacity for fighting corruption.
In this regard, how exactly does Namibia make use of evidence to target its anti-corruption efforts?
Yes, what we do is when we have conducted an assessment and we find, for example, that many of the acts of impropriety that we experience as a country are in a certain area. Let me say, for example, it's in corruption or tax evasion or tax avoidance or violation of standards related to the protection of the environment, then we would target our prevention and our combative actions to those activities so that we ensure that our actions are adding value to strengthening governance in the country and preventing and fighting against corruption.
And of course, another critical topic was combating illicit financial flows and tax crimes through the effective strategies description. How is Namibia faring, especially in terms of combating illicit financial flows and tax crimes? And what were your key takeaways from that discussion exactly?
Yes, what Namibia is doing, as I have indicated, first and foremost, we have passed a law to establish the Financial Intelligence Center, and we have established it and fully operationalized it to ensure that it prevents the illicit flows of financial resources. We have established the Committee on Anti-Money Laundering and Financing of Terrorist Activities, and we have put in place a law in that regard, and we have strengthened our tax administration system by establishing NAMRA as an autonomous institution. And NAMRA itself is engaged with measures to ensure that they implement the latest, most effective systems and procedures to regulate the flows of proceeds together with the financial intelligence centers across the borders especially, but also to make sure that their audit capacity is strengthened to ensure that we minimize tax avoidance and tax evasion involving not only nationals but also multinationals, in order that the country can really benefit from specifically the natural resources that we are endowed with in order to improve the welfare conditions of all Namibians.
And finally, Prime Minister, what is the importance of Namibia undertaking international benchmarks on anti-corruption, and perhaps also how can organizations such as the OECD best support Namibia in advancing the fight against corruption?
Yes, Namibia benefits by having an opportunity to compare notes with other countries, to learn from other countries, to coordinate with the other countries, and to benefit from capacity building from other countries that are more advanced, in order that we are more effective in dealing with these challenges at home. And as was indicated, for us as a global community, all of us are better off if we support each individual stakeholders to be optimal in their efforts to optimize the outcomes in fighting corruption and preventing corruption, because it is important that we do not allow loopholes in the global systems that would enable the practitioners of corruption to thrive in a certain part of the world, because once that happens, then they can launch their corruption activities to different parts of the world. So we benefit by coordinating with others, by benchmarking with others, in order that we can optimize our efforts and the results therefrom, and we can help make the world a better place and optimize prosperity for the global community, one that is hopefully equitably shared. And that is why one of the points that we have raised here is really to say that the developed nations should share not only their capacities with African countries, but we should also cooperate in terms of holding accountable perpetrators of corruption who may come from those countries and practice corruption in our countries, as we have seen in the resources sectors, to hold them to account and also to repatriate the proceeds from corruption that is practiced in our countries to our countries back where they come from, so that we can utilize them to improve the welfare conditions of our people. That way we can prosper as well, and then we can be a more prosperous partner for them, with whom they can trade to be more prosperous, but also to make sure that these multinationals, who are their corporate citizens, are playing on a leveled playing field. They are not better off because they are doing business in countries that are developing and are lacking in capacity to have effective laws and to enforce them, to the detriment of their counterparts in the developed nations. I think that is important. So the developed nations are showing that they are prepared to work with us in that regard, and we are very keen to take up that offer so that really we do not end up losing out on the benefits from the resources that our countries are endowed with through illicit flows and the bribery, for example, by companies from the north.
Well, Prime Minister, we certainly thank you for your time. I know that you are very busy there, and we certainly wish you all the best in the rest of your visit there in Paris, France. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, that has been the Right Honourable Prime Minister Saara Kuugongelwa-Amadhila, who is attending the annual Anti-Corruption and Integrity Forum organized by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, taking place in Paris, France.
Well, that was Milcah Negongo talking to the Prime Minister, Saara Kuugongelwa-Amadhila. We'll now take a short break. We'll be right back.